We have reached a new era of COVID. That's right. It is so deadly now. It can kill you without you even getting it. That's right. Studyfinds.org has this headline, "Scared to Death. Doctors say patients with serious diseases are dying from fear of COVID-19. And we've got a big block of COVID stories for you today. A lot of little details for you to know. A lot of things just with this massive thing out there happening that you have to keep up with, or you won't be able to function in society. You won't understand why they're yelling at you for smiling at them. You won't understand why people are lining up to get this vaccine. And there's so many I told you so's now. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. How's that going for you? We have entered an era of medical tyranny. Where you go, who you're with, what businesses are allowed to do business, no longer determined by, well, I guess what was left of our free will and choice here in America. No, now determined by doctors and public health experts. I'm at a loss. They've gotten us so afraid of this thing, this false fear. Does it not echo every other major government racket at this point? It should be not just obvious, but to the point where the resentment. Can we make this? Every time government goes through a war on this or that or whatever it is, some new big racket of fear, to scare you first, to make you easy to control, to make you submissive. We go, what? Will people please put the pieces together this time? Please let them realize why this is happening. They made us afraid of terrorism so we could have a global war on terror. They made us afraid of drugs and addiction and minorities so that we could have a war on drugs. They made us afraid of being destitute in a world of plenty. To be afraid of poverty, to support the war on poverty. What else? Crime, climate change, greed, be afraid. But now with COVID, they hit on something else. This is from the article, studyfinds.org. Modern medicine can do amazing things for even the most critically ill patient, but it can't do a thing if they don't seek treatment. More people are dying from heart and respiratory conditions, which don't usually lead to death, and avoiding medical care may be why. Dr. Joseph S. Albert, editor-in-chief of the American Journal of Medicine, says the cause is simple: fear finds real. More patients with serious illnesses are avoiding urgently needed care over concerns they'll contract COVID-19 in hospitals. Alper says, although he's seeing the same mix of non-COVID inpatients entering hospitals, right, those with heart failure or COPD, these people are much sicker and close to death than in pre-pandemic days. As he says, quote, at times, 1/3 of our internal medicine patients were receiving consultations from the palliative care service and were being considered inpatient or home hospice. In the past, the usual situation involved no patient or only one individual being considered for hospice. So they're not literally scaring people to death with COVID. Although they are scared, I would bet there are going to be more studies showing that there's so many psychosomatic patients. People act like the long haulers. One of the things they're trying to scare us with today, Our next headline, dnyuz.com. Some COVID-19 patients say they're left with ringing in ears. And I try not to cover these stories because there's so many. Every time you have, two patients with some side effect, well, now it's COVID toes. Well, now your penis might explode. Well, now you might die from your brain caving in because every random thing that they can associate with COVID to make you afraid, they will. And now people are dying directly because of the fear, because of the irrational fear. And it's people are afraid to go in for regular treatment. People are afraid to go out and work out. People are afraid to go to the gym. Although today, our COVID block is really dominated by stories of reopening. And I have to wonder, is this thing over? No. No. The title of today's show is rather misleading. No, it's not over, but it has entered a new phase. And it's just a new layer of tyranny, of control. And it is rather, I think, encouraging to understand this. Why do we seek to understand this? Why not just be afraid? Why not just live in that uncertainty of fear? Why not just go along and get along and be a part of the herd? Well, actually, understanding this is a way of seeing past what they want you to be afraid of. Deconstructing the propaganda, deconstructing the mainstream narrative as a way of getting to the truth is something we pursue because the truth will set you free. The truth is that you have no reason ever to live in fear. Certainly from COVID, you have no reason to be afraid of the virus. Unfortunately, there are rational fears that we face right now. The fear of economic destitution, suddenly a lot more threatening for those whose jobs depend on being within 6 feet of other people or gathering in public places. Although fortunately that's coming back. The fear of government control, well, it's already here, just at a new level. But all of those fears can be deconstructed as well. And while emotional freedom means you control the response to the response, you take control of your mind, your outlook, your attitude, your demeanor, these things that are your choice. As a conscientious human being, you can also choose to never live in that fear. And that's the big lie. That's the big thing that needs to just be just the big curtain to be pulled back is on your own mind. That you have that emotional freedom. They cannot take that away from you. And that you have no reason to ever live in fear and let others control you with it. And today is, what is it? Is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. Wednesday, March 24th, 2021. Looks like a beautiful, clear, warm day here in Gardenia. Been a great, I have some exciting news as of yesterday. I'm adopting 2 local puppies, Pit Bull Rottweiler mixes. So, Jim, you're going to have to come back here sooner or later. Let's get comment Jim now. Executive producer Jim Freedom up on screen here for producer notes this morning. Sorry to give you the heads up. I was jumping into that story, but man, I was putting the COVID block together today, and that fear story just kept jumping up to the lead. I felt like I had to get into that directly.
Yeah, it's definitely worth getting into. It's getting crazy out there. First thing, producer notes that I want to say. I've been asking in the private chat, but nobody's paying attention to that apparently. I need, please, Mercy and Jonathan Evans backstage to stop sharing your screens, please. There's 2 Mercy, 2 Jonathans, and that puts all these screens backstage because we were learning beforehand, but it just makes it another screen that I can accidentally click on and mess up. You know what I mean? Another button. So I appreciate that. They're good. Anyways. As far as promotions go, I'm sure everybody has heard us talk about it before, but here's the address for the public Telegram channel that everyone should be in. Anyone that watches this show should be in one of these groups. I think it's like the other half of the show. You know what I mean? When we're not live, we're live in Telegram. You know what I mean? So join the public Telegram. If you want to join the private Telegram, you can join through our Patreon. You can just buy access. You don't have to wait on winning a contest or anything. You can just go to the website adamversustheman.com, like you see at the bottom. Click on the Patreon link, and that'll bring you to our Patreon page. $10 a month is what gets you access to the Private Producers Club. After you do that, you can click the back button and go to the shop that CJ put together on the website and check that out. All kinds of cool items with the Adam vs. the Man logo or the Freedom logo. Either way. After that, check out our affiliate program, Cigar Federation. You can use promo code Adam10 here to get 10% off your entire order, no matter how much you order. And it's an excellent website with an excellent choice of cigars. So definitely check that out. Lastly, did you get any pictures up on Instagram of your snowstorm that you had yesterday?
Man. Yesterday, I don't know if the cold just knocked me out, but we did get about an inch of snow. And then it was like there were no good photos. I mean, unless it was just like, it was almost whiteout conditions, like serious thick snow, 100-foot visibility at one point. And then it was done. And then it was mud. Like by the time we took off in the evening to run into town for propane, it was like, patches at best. Yeah. And a lot of slush. Definitely a day you appreciate having 4-wheel drive, because we don't really get snowed in here so much as like mudded in, but
Right.
we do get snowed in too a couple times a year maybe.
So I just realized that we went ahead and covered the first 2 stories without containing our COVID block.
I think we've given up on that. COVID is uncontainable. It's mutating. It's everywhere. There's I should have included in the fear point there. Well, we're going to get to it, but India detects double mutant coronavirus variant in Western state. We have that headline today. But we also have a new co-host. We got a new co-host up on screen.
Yeah, let's get him up here, yeah.
John Evans. Oh, almost.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Welcome to the show, John. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be here with you, Adam. Nice to be here with you too, Jim. And I'm glad to be part of the team, at least for the day.
Well, this is very exciting because now we are really rocking and rolling with the rotating co-host crew. And I was just thinking that you're the first who's never been like properly introduced on the show. So, take a couple minutes. Where are you calling from? Who are you?
My name's.
You'll be joining us at least Wednesdays for the time being.
Yeah. It was kind of weird, but I guess we're doing our introductions on air. My name's John Evans. Let me see. I don't know what my credentials are. I ran for president in 2016. Didn't really get any votes, but I put my name on there. If you Google me, you'll find it. My feelings with the federal government are real similar to yours. I've been kind of I got a bone to pick with them. I think they're taking away our freedom of speech and religion, honestly. And I've been watching your show I've been aware of you since, at least 2008. And then we started watching a couple months and we're just like, well, what were we doing? And now I'm here with you and happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. John will be getting your comments up on screen now, John. And feel free, if you didn't do your homework, to improv on this one. What is your comment contest today to give away membership in the Producers Club?
We are looking for the best comments, the best trolley comments, something snarky and relevant. And if you give us something good that's going to make us all laugh back here, we're definitely going to get you membership in the Producers Club.
All right. Funniest trolling today. We're going for it. All right. Thank you, John. John's going to be watching your comments. So let's do it now. I guess we should take, I don't know if I've had enough COVID vitamins. Is that COVID greens? Don't forget to smoke your COVID vitamins before we get ready to give out a lot of misleading medical information. I'm coughing a lot today, so if you're wondering why my voice is still rough, it's not the Rona, and it's probably not the weed this morning either. I'm still recovering from inhaling a lot of insulation pink foam fibers. What was that? Classical music, snark, and relevance has never been my forte. You're off to a great start. The Associated Press has this headline: Merkel drops Easter shutdown plan for Germany, apologizes. And I'm like, oh, Angela, didn't the point of being government is never having to say you're sorry? Angela Merkel, as a modern state, head of state, definitely an interesting phenomenon who is become more and more relevant during this COVID phase. But I'm afraid that the backlash for her sort of not really having a choice. I don't want to say not having a choice, but bear with me for a second. I mean, if this COVID thing comes about and you're Angela Merkel, you can't really pretend it's not a thing when every other major government is getting in on this racket. And if you screw it up, well, I mean, look what happened to Trump. Trump didn't get reelected. Was his handling of COVID a contributing factor? Oh, absolutely. There's been a lot of turnover in world leaders. Who has not seemed to, we have another story we're going to get to today about Benjamin Netanyahu eventually not being reelected prime minister in Israel. And in Russia, however, Vladimir Putin seems to have held on to power just fine. But it makes you wonder about his role in all of this and leads you to wonder, well, who's really pulling the strings that affect these world leaders? And there are 3,225 billionaires in the world, at least according to Google as of a few days ago. And there are within that super class, even with among those who don't have that big number attached to them, a certain small number of string pullers in the world to whom world leaders of governments are second tier. So she's apologizing, and I mean, in and of itself, I go, "Wow, that's awesome!" A world, a state, major government leader saying that they're sorry for something, and I think it's just the way that the super class, the way the string pullers are pushing things with this whole coronavirus racket is causing a certain amount of instability. Not necessarily just world leaders, but even within the United States. Again, not just Trump. Who else? Gavin Newsom. Who else? Andrew Cuomo, looking like they might not hold on to their governorships very long. And a lot of that is because of COVID. When the powers that be, you think of them sort of pulling the levers on world affairs, they know that by pushing this COVID racket the way they are, that a lot of politicians are going to screw it up, and it's going to be a chance to have some turnover. German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Wednesday dropped plans for a 5-day shutdown over Easter, which had prompted confusion and criticism. She called the idea a mistake and apologized to Germans. Merkel announced the decision after a hastily arranged video conference with Germany's 16 state governors who are responsible for imposing and lifting restrictions. Hi, Stephen. The same group, faced with rising coronavirus infections, had come up early Tuesday with the unexpected plan for tighter restrictions over Easter. The plan was to make Thursday next week, the day before Good Friday, a rest day with all shops closed, and allow only supermarkets to open on Easter Sunday, since the Friday and Monday are already national holidays. That would have created a 5-day shutdown of public life on top of existing lockdown restrictions, which were extended through April 18. The plan raised many logistical and legal questions and also was criticized because there was no public discussion of it before it emerged Tuesday. And from top to bottom, there's a certain, unenforceability about this that makes you wonder, like, who's going along, right? And I know there are a lot of businesses which are already so entangled with government that when government says this is the policy, they don't really have it. And I hate saying that, you don't have a choice. But you look at all the businesses that resisted the shutdowns. You look at the gym in New Jersey, the gyms all over the country, and salons going to operate in basements, bars opening even in civil disobedience in a lot of cases, and then they get SWAT teams sent after them, in Texas and other crazy parts of the United States. But then you think of the mask mandate itself. Well, you have to wear a mask, but not if you have a medical reason, because we can't show that this disease is so much worse than something you might have already if you're asthmatic, if you have some kind of autism disorder that makes you freak out, if you have a mask on your face, or whatever the case may be. All right, fine, you can be medically exempt, and that's pretty much written into. I have yet to see a single order that doesn't allow for those medical exemptions with masks. Now, they will say if a business wants to set a higher standard and not let people into their store who have medical exemptions, and this is a weird thing, because it's not just the mandates, it's the amount of fear and how that changes policy. I've said this from the beginning, like about restaurants. If you're operating on a thin margin, it doesn't matter if they reopen and lift all the restrictions. If a third of your customers are too afraid to come to your business, you're out of business. Tough shit, right? This is why Trump said, a lot of restaurants are going to close, but don't worry, they'll come back just under new ownership. Well, they're still arranging that new ownership with a lot of the economic shuffling going on right now. Oh, you thought that was Trump's bad? No. The fascism, as Mussolini defined, merging of corporations and the state only accelerates under Czar Biden, right? So to the unenforceability of this, when we get to the businesses, the reason I went to that is like with the masks too. They can require masks, but then they have to give you curbside service or accommodate you in another way. They can't deny you access to a business because of a medical discrimination. But with businesses, that major corporate chains, like I said, those that are so entangled, entwined with the state, perhaps, that maybe they don't have a choice. But there were a lot of businesses that did have a choice and still do. And I mean, the choice, is it's maybe I'm not being sympathetic enough to the business owners, because it's you lose your license, right? You'd be operating a business without a license. Well, considering how long this has gone on, a lot of people should be looking back saying it would have been cheaper to stay in business and eventually lose our license and then like reorganize after this whole thing than hold on to this business license as if this is the BLN government. Why do I need government permission to do business in the first place? And there was a huge missed opportunity, of course, as a libertarian. I'm going to have all sorts of civil disobedience fantasies. But really, why couldn't more businesses have just chosen to stay open in partial civil disobedience? I mean, to declare themselves essential, or essential, but we don't even differentiate anymore. Well, I'm an essential worker. It used to be your pass to get to be able to work or get a vaccine. Although, by the way, I watched the South Park vaccination special yesterday. Yeah, great job, guys. Again, beautiful. I highly recommend it. And again, and maybe we'll probably be getting into this with John later, or Mercedes is with us. I think she's watched it already. Of course, downloaded, torrented that, not paying for any media like that. But South Park vaccination special. One of the themes really was making fun of how much people want the vaccine. So that is another thing with this sort of unenforceability. You're going to have a vaccine passport. How many people who have already gotten the vaccine or a vaccine are going to be able to are going to have their vaccine? Remember when that we brought you a story a couple weeks ago where they were saying this heroic team of doctors and medical professionals salvaged several thousand doses of the coronavirus vaccine because Their freezer or refrigeration system had failed, and the vaccine was going to go bad, so they couldn't, dole them out slowly to the high priority people, and they had to just get them out and get needles into people's. They just got them out and rushed them out there. Do you think all those people have their paperwork properly complete to get a vaccine passport in such a way that they're going to be able to respect that with some kind of vaccine passport system that you're not going to be able to fake your way into? They're not going to be able to test for this. Did you get the vaccine or not? Do you have the antibodies? Because none of the tests are 100% reliable. And that's the other thing, is none of the vaccines are 100% reliable. So you say, is it over? I don't know. I think we've Corona, I guess the thesis behind my title of the show today is that we are reaching a sort of, we've flattened the curve, and we're into this like ongoing stasis of this new medical tyranny. And I don't know where this goes. There's some really big unanswerable questions in this all for me, because I like to ask, the really big questions about where this is going. How does this fit into the general human march towards freedom, towards a voluntary society, towards a better world? How does this whole coronavirus pandemic hoax, this new state of government, of medical tyranny, how does this relate to human progress? Because right now it's holding us back, but is it as bad as war? Is it as bad as the monetary racket that was here before it, that's been here under the current Federal Reserve System since 1913? I don't think so. But it is still overwhelming. It feels, and even by my analysis, I think we are in a surging state, or a surged state of statism, but it has come down. Man, where are we going with these dynamics? If you want to let me know in the comments, those are the kind of big questions. I like it and helpful. We're going to come back. We're going to breeze through the rest of this COVID vlog. I know I got all my ranting out after this first headline. But back to Angela Merkel, as she said, this mistake. Well, I'll quote her, because this is the apology. The idea of an Easter shutdown was drawn up with the best intentions, because we must urgently manage to slow and reverse the third wave of the pandemic. However, the idea was a mistake. There were good reasons for it, but could not be implemented well enough in the short time. This mistake is my mistake alone, because in the end, I bear ultimate responsibility for everything. A mistake must be called a mistake, and above all, it must be corrected, and if possible, that has to happen in time. At the same time, of course, I know that this whole matter triggers more uncertainty. I regret that deeply, and I apologize to all citizens. And you go, wow, now there's, the uncertainty thing here. For libertarians, in economic terms, you can't plan a business, you can't make financial plans. If you don't know, like, how many people were thinking about opening a new restaurant or starting a new business a year ago and went, ooh, not going to try that now with COVID. And we are definitely, I'll say one other sort of big commentary thing before we jump into the rest of these wonderful COVID headlines. That one of my theories, I would call the last licks theory, that when you see, a lot of what I have thought of as some of these major spending bills, basically everything. And I hate to be one of those collapsitarian or sky is falling libertarians, or the dollar's about to collapse, buy gold from our sponsors kind of libertarian. But since 2008, since the of TAR 2008, 2009, it seems like there's been an awareness in the super class that this current fiat currency based, globally, really global reserve currency, US dollar, right? That this racket is coming to an end. And they're getting their last licks in with a dying system. This $1.9 trillion COVID emergency relief that's going to get us to some kind of UBI. I mean, I don't endorse my own theory here as necessarily true. It's a theory. It's a possibility. We may never know how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop, but we can see this larger sequence of events, and the scale of the ripoff of government is escalating. Of course, as I like to point out, the exponential growth of human capacity to be productive, to provide goods and services that people want to consume that contribute to quality of life is going up. So the amount that can be skimmed off the top without the system collapsing keeps going up and up and up. And maybe that's all we're seeing. But being an optimist, I'd like to think that the instability is going to continue. What was it? Was it a scene in the pandemic special? Man, I can't, or vaccination special, I can't remember. Just some meme. I one is going to be just another. As much as it was defined by the event of COVID, everything around the kind of destabilizing events that lead to global decentralization, independence, breaking off, seceding from the Union for onto the headlines. Across the pond, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson for the UK's successful coronavirus immediately retracted the mark, making it absent. Sometimes the truth is said most poignantly in jest, but towards the unfiltered remark, true. And even if Johnson was joking, intellectual progress, it could make it easier for developing nations to manufacture. But the Sun, the tabloid, the Prime Minister told a group of Tory, as he said, quote, the reason we have, boom, you take a step forward, you get another needle in each shoulder. You pull your pants down and get one in the ass. And then there was the anthrax vaccine that we got later as part of the global war of terror. And then there was smallpox, I think we had to get also. And anthrax was a series. And and smallpox was one. Was it smallpox? I think it was that. I couldn't get it. Like they ran out at my reserve unit in California. And so they're like, oh, you'll get it in Kuwait. And then I got to Kuwait and I was like, hey, Staff Sergeant, I never got that shot. Can I go check out medical and see if they got one here? And I went, they're like, no, we don't have any. Come back again. And then this was the shot that was like, it caused a little scab, was really nasty for people, like a swollen bump and everything. And then I was like, as I was walking, I remember while I was in Kuwait, walking back to our big tent, going like, if I don't bring this up again, I don't think anybody else is going to. I'll just let this go. And that was what I did with the, with anthrax, I got the first one and then skipped all the others. Sven writes, at the end of the line, you pull your pants down and get one in the ass. Wow, the military is hardcore. Yeah, at the end of the gauntlet. So AstraZeneca is now being thrown under the bus of corporatism one way or another, because they could, even with this being a thing, it could have been buried. It's getting blown up now. From DNYUZ.com, cache of 29 million AstraZeneca doses in Italy raises EU suspicions. A stockpile of 29 million doses of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine that were found languishing in a facility in Italy became the new flashpoint on Wednesday in the conflict between the pharmaceutical company and the EU, as the bloc prepared to unveil stringent export restrictions primarily meant to stop drug makers from sending doses abroad. Yes, our lives are more important than theirs, and it's all right for us to forcibly interfere with commerce to express that. The Italian authorities found the vaccines in a site visit, European Union officials said, at a factory near Rome that is contracted to fill and finish COVID-19 vaccine vials for AstraZeneca. The Italian authorities went to the site after receiving an alert from the EU, which found a discrepancy between what the company said it was producing in European Union facilities and what the facilities themselves were reporting. This sounds like some of the cannabis legalization laws where they call it like seed to sale. Never mind that a lot of cannabis plants are grown from clones, but if you plant a seed, you have to track that plant and everything from seed to sale. Government has to see why? And it's control. It's to guarantee that they get their cut. This is a mafia operation, fundamentally organized crime and a protection racket. Now, unrelated but related through the pandemic, Bloomberg through MSN.com with this headline: carcinogen found in hand sanitizers that plugged pandemic gap. No commenters. You just keep the plugging gaps jokes to yourself. Some widely available hand sanitizers that American consumers snapped up last year to ward off coronavirus infection contain high levels of a chemical known to cause cancer, a testing firm's analysis found. An assortment of hand cleaners that flooded into the market after mainstays disappeared from retail outlets contain high levels of benzene, according to Valisure, a New Haven, Connecticut-based online pharmacy that tests products for quality and consistency. I mean, this is like just another tiny wrinkle in the "I told you so" of the cure being worse than the disease. And like I said, I was, before Corona, I was significantly more of a germaphobe than the average American. Now I am way less. And to see that there are people who were like going crazy with the hand, remember that is the hand sanitizer. Like, we haven't heard so much about hand sanitizer panic. I guess all those companies have gotten their production up and are making money hand over fist still, literally, because hands are being rubbed raw. And we covered stories months ago that people were overusing hand sanitizers and washing their hands. I mean, washing your hands is a natural thing. I mean, you can remove dirt and get clean hands. Oh man, mine are dirty. Soap and water, natural soap and water, and we're surprised that rubbing alcohol and benzene all over your hands like multiple times a day is bad for you. And this is, back to the theme of the fear. They're scaring people so bad that they're hurting themselves. They're hurting themselves with stress and anxiety. We got another one about. I'll just keep going. These headlines today. It's a lot of COVID. But yeah, Valisure analyzed 260 bottles from 168 brands and found 17% of the samples contained detectable levels of benzene. 21 bottles, or 8%, contained benzene above 2 parts per million, a temporary limit the FDA set for liquid hand sanitizers to ease the supply squeeze. Now, remember, there's another way that we can blame government for this, because with the surge of demand for hand sanitizers early on in this hoax, there were alcohol companies who said, well, look, we have the distillery, we can create alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Can we get these out? And government said, no, you can't. And part of it was that if it was, it could get alcohol in the hands of minors. It was just these bullshit excuses, because a whole part of this, was like, well, let's name some names. Exhorted by politicians and health officials to wash their hands, consumers quickly exhausted supplies of household names such as Purell and Suave. So politicians and health officials caused those companies to make a shit ton of money. While those brands, like most of those tested, didn't contain unsafe benzene levels, many new entrants did. According to Valisure, some of these tainted sanitizers were found for sale at Amazon.com, Incorporated, and Target Corporation outlets. Most hand sanitizers Valisure found and tested were gels. The pharmacy's test results were verified by Yale University's Chemical and Biophysical Instrumentation Center and Boston Analytical Private Lab. On Wednesday, Valisure asked the FDA to take action on the contaminated products. Now, here, where do we go for side effects here? Blood cancers. Yeah, these findings are alarming and reveal a serious potential risk to public health, Valisure said in a petition signed by Chief Executive Officer David Light and other executives. The pharmacy previously found high levels of other carcinogens and drug components manufactured overseas for the U.S. market. And the problem with this, there's a kind of Chinese finger trap effect here. No, I'm not making an actual China reference, but that when government causes a problem and you don't see that that's what happened, they can trick you into thinking that more government is the answer to that problem. And in this case, oh my gosh, unsafe products on the market. We need more FDA intervention. Now we need to get government the fuck out of the way so this doesn't happen again in the future. Let's just add another layer of bullshit to the problem. That's really going to be good for all these infected sores. These findings are alarming, reveal a series. All right, sorry. I want to get to this, the actual effects here. Benzene has been linked to certain blood cancers, such as leukemia. Cigarette smoke accounts for about half of the benzene exposure in the U.S., according to the American Cancer Society. Workers in certain chemical industries risk exposure to the material which is used to make plastics and rubber. The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health says skin absorption and ingestion are also possible. We got a long comment here from Illinois 4545 at whoop-de-doo. We should never give up our humanism, in my opinion. Yes, we have our problems, but a machine can never understand human emotion. Humans are willing to often go against the odds, and miracles result. I think you could program an AI to do that. No, but you're right. There is something inherently humane in our humanism that is being challenged in all of this. That you're seen as a medical case. James Toller, can't wait to see you on the 5th. Adam, going to be a great event. Yes, thank you for the reminder. We should be promoting this. We'll get it into our rotation tomorrow. And Jim, we need to add the Crypto 6, crypto6.com, the 6 we're arrested in Keene. We're going to mention them every day on the show, at least as long as Ian Freeman is in jail. But we just this morning confirmed with tickets booked that G.I. Mary Jane and myself will be attending a free speech rally at the University of Kentucky on April 5th. Masks not optional, apparently. We'll see what happens with that. Going to be a fun event. Thank you to Jenny Seville and Charles Artendorf and James Toller there and a handful of others I'm forgetting to name off the top of my head for helping make that happen. So if you can be in the University of Kentucky, I don't even know what city this is in, man. I have the Facebook event link. We're gonna get it to Jim. We're gonna have it on screen every day until the event. At least mention that. So yeah, if you can be at the University of Kentucky, I don't know where I'm flying into. Yeah, Jenny's doing a great job taking care of all that for us. But fun event coming up, University of Kentucky, April 5th. Hey, Leland. All right, so back to the story. In 1990, a local environmental official in North Carolina discovered benzene in bottles of Perrier water that led the company to conduct a massive recall and halt distribution to 120 countries. The company resumed bottling soon after the problem was identified and solved and was bought by Nestle in 1992. Yeah. So, blocking imports. There were ones coming from Mexico that had methanol. Anyway, so the other big side effect, I guess I kind of want to, well, no, it'll be our last story in the COVID block. You'll see. We got another good story on that theme. But first, ibtimes.com, Brazil's 24-hour COVID deaths surpass 3,000 for first time. And this is one of the ways, and I wish this wasn't I told you so, but I didn't quite predict this. I did say that we were going to see different responses from different countries, and that in and of itself should give us some point of understanding for how we've been taken advantage of. But in terms of the fear mongering, what I didn't predict, but should have been able to now that I see it in hindsight, is that remember at first too they were saying, oh well, look, it's not even affecting these countries. They're going about their lives as normal. Oh whoops, they should have locked down. Look at Brazil having their first big wave. I don't know if this is the first, second, third, whatever wave they want to call this in Brazil. But oh well, we have to keep the world in some kind of quasi lockdown status because not everybody's gotten the virus yet. We have to wait till it gets around the world, all these other countries. All right, Brent Sanders. I always hated the term constitutional rights since the Constitution doesn't grant rights. Indeed. Thank you so much for that point. All right, now to India. Remember, I mentioned this scary headline earlier. India detects double mutant coronavirus variant in Western state. India has detected a double mutant variant of the novel coronavirus in 206 samples in the worst hit Western state of Maharashtra, senior government officials said on Wednesday. The new variant was also detected in 9 samples in the capital, New Delhi. The director of National Center for Disease Control, Sujit Kumar Singh, told a news conference. And there's something about this, just thinking about the resources that are going into detecting and understanding every little coronavirus variant. What if we put those resources towards, ending poverty, ending hunger, ending war, providing medical care for everybody, solving the energy challenges of our time, cleaning up pollution, dissolving the trash or absorbing, turning into roads, all the trash islands in the ocean. No. We've got our heads so far up our asses with this coronavirus thing that we've lost all perspective. And if anything, again, why we the people have to write the history of this thing rather than letting authorities tell the story, so that we remember these lessons and understand all the ways the government screwed things up and held us back. Richard Einstein weighs, unfortunately, 90% of those who took the mRNA jab will no longer be with us a year from now. Maybe I'll deserve the Darwin Award. Now, so I haven't really gone the fear-mongering route with the vaccine either, because I think it's just as bullshit as the fear-mongering route with the virus itself. No, the virus. I mean, there is. Thank you for raising the one serious point I'll tease out of your comment there, which is that we don't yet know all of the long-term effects of the vaccine, and we know that some of that is, as we showed today with the AstraZeneca, they're using bullshit data. They're getting, but is it a plan to kill 90% of the population? No, no. Now there is some legitimate fear that among the superclass, there are those who would like the global human population to go down, and that they're sort of accidentally pushing the policies that lead to significant depopulation, or like one of the legit concerns. I don't think they're going to kill people with the vaccines. I don't think that would be their intent. They're playing a longer game here, but sterilization, perhaps. If that, and it's not like they're going to deliberately sterilize them. I'm not trying to get into one of these, conspiracy rabbit holes here, but we don't really mind if a bunch of poor people can't have kids, do we? Like, you can imagine that's what they're thinking, and that's going to influence policy, at least to some degree. COVID virus situation worsening everywhere in France. Space government. That's the new this headline from Reuters. Thomson Reuters. Like, and I gotta say, I don't know if this is a change in Reuters or if it's me, but there's something offensive about a headline like this. COVID virus situation worsening everywhere in France. Government. That's their attribution, not because it would be such a smoother, readable headline if it was government says virus, but they present what government says as fact. Oh, by the way, it's government that's pointing this out. The COVID-19 virus situation is worsening everywhere in France. Government spokesman Gabriel Attal said on Wednesday. And I just have a hard time believing any of that. To Miami, sfgate.com, black leaders say Miami Beach overreacting with curfew. This according to the Washington Post. And we covered the story Monday with Miami Beach, their conflict there with some of their crackdowns on spring breakers based on COVID. But black leaders, city leaders saying that black activists, are saying that authorities were being too heavy-handed with college students. Of course, this is predominantly young African Americans, according to the story, after being overwhelmed by what city leaders described as exceptionally large and violent crowds. Miami Beach officials implemented an 8 p.m. curfew over the weekend and drew police units from across Miami-Dade County to enforce it. You really think spring breakers give a shit? All right, we'll go inside. We'll go to sleep at 8. We'll wake up. We'll start partying at 4 a.m. That's okay. Like, but the funny thing is that the criticism here is not the premise of the curfew, but the means of this. Like Valerie Crawford, remember the city's newly created Black Affairs Committee, quote, you create a police state and you think you're fixing a problem, you might be creating more problems. You almost corral them into a cage. How about the insanity of this idea? Why is this in the COVID block? Because one of the premises unspoken of this curfew is that the virus only comes out after 8 p.m. If you go inside at 8 p.m., the virus can't get you. And I get it. Well, after 8 p.m., Adam, that's when people party. No, not for spring breakers. Not for people in Miami Beach. This is one of those party spots that never sleeps. And they really think they're gonna solve this problem with an 8 p.m. curfew. Okay. SF Gate also has this headline from Hawaii. Hawaii tourist spots packed with spring breakers from states without mask mandates. Hawaii's famed beaches are nearly back to pre-pandemic levels as a spring break surge of travelers floods the islands, and many are coming from states that do not have outdoor mask mandates, which Hawaii does. Hawaii saw 28,000 travelers enter the state on Saturday, the highest number since the pandemic locked down the state in March. The local TV station Hawaii News Now reported that many of these tourists aren't wearing masks outdoors, with a number of them telling the station that their home states don't require it. 17 states recommend but do not require masks to be worn in public. Idaho visitor Todd Hasley told them, quote, "I'm not wearing one right now. I'm outdoors." Boise City has an indoor mask mandate. The rest of the state has a mask recommendation. So, yeah, it's good. But Hawaii, meanwhile, where they are, requires outdoor mask usage regardless of where the person is from. As their website instructs, you should wear a mask whenever you're in public and anytime around people who don't live with you. And when I was there in January, they weren't actually really respecting medical exemptions. It was pretty heavy-handed in Hawaii. One volunteer group called Hawaii Kapu Quarantine Violators has been keeping tabs on mask scofflaws for nearly a year. Its founder, Angela Keene, aka Karen, recently told KITV their citizen watchers have noticed an uptick in maskless tourists. Keene cited one airport screener, said they definitely feel like tourists aren't wearing masks. We have tourists coming off the plane without their mask and without it being worn properly. Yeah. Hawaii is averaging 75 new COVID cases per day and a 1.5% test positivity rate, but trends are looking less rosy in Maui and Honolulu counties, where test positivity rates are up 36 and 80% respectively from March. Now, there's a little number trick here. Test positivity rates are up 80%. That's not to 80%. That's up 80%. That's like from 1.5% to 2. It was 8. 2.7, right? 1.5% to 2.7% would be an 80% increase. And you know, when I went there in January, I had to deal with all this. It's good to see that the Karens are losing the battle for Hawaii. Now, to Vegas. Thanks, Joe. This headline from the Daily Mail. Thanks, Joe. Thousands blow $1,400 stimulus checks in Vegas after Nevada lifts restrictions and the Strip roars back to life. The Las Vegas Strip nearly reverted to its former glory after Nevada rolled back its COVID-19 restrictions, allowing casinos, bars, and restaurants to reopen at 50% capacity. Oh yeah, 50%. Okay, we'll let you have half of your life back, as we are such generous, kind overlords. Thousands flocked to the famous Strip over the weekend to spend their $1,400 pandemic stimulus checks. Sin City hotels, meanwhile, took advantage of the spike in tourists by hiking up prices to pre-pandemic levels. The Strat was offering rooms for $179 a night compared to $50 during the summer, while the Cosmopolitan had hiked prices to $610. All right, so my opportunity to go party for cheap in Vegas is gone. Mary, 30, from Atlanta, Georgia, was in town to celebrate her friend's 30th birthday, told the Daily Mail, "We're absolutely spending our checks. Thanks, Joe." Yeah. Now, about the checks, if they're going to steal from us, it's good that they give a little of it back if they have to do that to maintain their racket. But a lot of that money goes straight back into corporate hands. Just note from ESPN.com, Miami Heat is going to open a vaccinated-only section for fans starting on April 1st. Yeah, that's the texture of this. And more to end with some positive news, at least, or almost end. Don't worry, we're going to end with some bad news. This is the COVID block, after all. And some more misleading medical advice. NBC's Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon brings back live studio audience. The move, which also saw the host return to his longtime home of Studio 6B, makes it likely the first nightly network late-night program to bring back a live audience since the pandemic began. Now, we'll end with an I told you so that's bad news, but it's kind of a fun one. Looking at, but as an indicator of something much worse and much more serious. A silent byproduct of the pandemic, this headline from USA Today. A silent byproduct of the pandemic, stress is causing a spike in chipped and cracked teeth. Yeah. Now, the stress is the big serious problem behind that. And this is one of those I told you so's about the cure being worse than the disease. When stress builds for Terry Hart Ellis, she subconsciously clenches her teeth like an angry cartoon character. That's what I do. How I do it when I'm trying to impersonate an angry cartoon character. So I assume that's what Terry Hart Ellis does. Like that. Yeah, my jaws tighten. Her jaws. Yeah, she's multiple jaws. I bite down really hard. I guess you upper jaw, lower jaw. Yeah, my jaws tighten. I bite down really hard and my eyebrows flare. Most of the time, I'm not even aware of it. But all that biting and clenching is taking a toll. She chipped a molar in May and last month pulled off a crown. Hart Ellis, 53, is hardly alone. During this year of pandemic stress, the American Dental Association says that dental health is a casualty. An ADA survey found more than 70% of dentists report an increase of patients with teeth grinding and clenching problems, conditions often associated with stress. Oh my God. I mean, just, oh, and the article gets into the unknowns of the pandemic virus. Couples clash over COVID. Dental problems mount. It didn't hurt at all. Yeah, talking about having teeth replaced. Wow. Early warning sign: jaw pain, fatigue, concern for disadvantaged people, and it is for a lot of people in economic uncertainty. This is one of those things that if you take care of your teeth and stop problems before they become much bigger problems, they're a lot less expensive. But especially in the past year with the forced unemployment crisis, a lot of people in low wage jobs, a lot of people in the service industry who haven't been working, haven't been getting tips, whatever the case may be. Can they afford that kind of preventative dental work? No. And I think it's funny to see that. It's just I didn't predict this part of this cure being worse than the disease, that we were going to be tracking it through dental problems as a metric of stress. But yeah, chipped and cracked teeth from people grinding. Wow, this is something we're starting to count and measure now. And that rounds out our COVID block today. So the one last bit of misleading medical advice that I'll give you is that if you're feeling a little stressed, help is just one bong rip away sometimes. Yeah, I did that for like 20 seconds. That was a big one. All right, let's get John on. Comment John, our co-host today. John Evans up on screen here. Check in again with the audience. A lot of great comments here. A lot of great sidebars. I didn't expect to take that long with the COVID block. I hope my side, because we don't have a guest today. I feel like you and me, John, we got a little more flexibility. We do a lot more comments and responses. Were there any comments that you got that you wanted me to respond to that I missed, perhaps?
You know, people are just having the normal conversation. There's one of them, I think, was kind of, somebody said, does Adam even know he has a live chat? Does he even know we're here? That one was pretty good. I got to say, though, for snarky, relevant, and trolly, there's a couple. Spoda B said something that referenced Idiocracy, which I love that movie. It's freaking hilarious. And that really kind of, put him up there. But I really like a lot of what Pasta Yogi's been saying. He's been kind of having fun with it today. And then, they're just having their arguments over there and trying to keep track of all that shit going on. And yeah.
Well, you're in Texas.
I am. Yeah. I'm right on the I'm about 30 miles outside of El Paso.
So how's the lockdown been there?
I mean, people wear masks to go into the store because people tell you to. Nobody gives a shit. The bars and clubs, they're open. We had this thing where because Abbott's over in East Texas and El Paso's on far west, they're almost New Mexico. They're lean more Democratic, while Texas leans the other way. So they've kind of been at odds with COVID, and we've just kind of just watched and said, you guys are fucking dumb. As they bought all the toilet paper.
Well, how when you say El Paso, and I understand it being a more left-leaning city, how much of that is? I mean, I've only driven through El Paso a handful of times, but it's not a very concentrated city. It's still West Texas. It's still like it's a lot of Mexican influence, a lot of civil disobedience, border crossing, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
you hear about. Well, I mean, yeah, we got the bridges, we've got the camps. You do hear a lot about that shit. Like they had the migrant kids were here. We haven't heard really much about the border in a while.
it's a pretty
It's
dispersed town, right? I mean, it's a lot of suburban and even
yeah,
rural
it's
areas that are part of greater metro El Paso area, as I understand, right? Rather than a very concentrated urban community.
you can say that. We're about 30 miles outside of town, and
And you still identify with El Paso.
well, there's really no other place to. I mean, our electric's El Paso Electric. Fabens doesn't have shit. I call it Fate's End. Kind of just washed up here.
So there's been a decent, like, sort of average amount of American Democrat based like fear around COVID, but you say like most people don't give a shit. Like, is
Well, I mean, yeah, the bars and shit, dude. They'll put the signs on, saying they're closed during the whole lockdown and everything, but then you go in and it's open. They did that quite a bit. They I don't know. It's just been a shit show, and I've just been looking at everybody saying, "Wow."
Yes, yeah, I like that. A lot of Arizona's like that. I notice even going at least rural Arizona, and I imagine that is sort of representative of the general attitude in more like outskirts El Paso.
Okay.
But the attitude of like, yeah, we'll put the signs on the doors, and if tourists come through, they won't flip their shit. But it's like, and we'll accommodate people who want to be afraid, but we're not going to really do much different than that.
I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't want to go to jail over something as dumb as wearing a mask. And I think it's kind of odd that you want me to wear a mask to go into a bank and a convenience store now. And I mean,
in California,
it's pretty silly.
When they started this mask policy, it was still on the books as a felony to wear a mask in certain situations in public.
Yeah,
you would
think. I mean, that's the funny thing about government overreach. They don't enforce things, with COVID, whatever. If it was a risk, we didn't take the proper steps in the first place. So what do? They overreact and fly off the handle the other way.
So, John, one other question about El Paso specifically before I want to get to you and the audience on the bigger question of this episode. For El Paso, were the shutdowns and lockdowns accepted at first, or was there a lot of, nah, we're going to operate anyway?
Well, let me see. For us, it wasn't bad, We didn't have to take our kids to school anymore. They said, take it off. Laid off. Those $900 employment checks weren't the worst thing in the world. And, so we took a break for a minute. And, yeah, it wasn't too terrible. Some people had a harder time, but not too many. I know the restaurants are really suffering out here. A lot of the food establishments, are taking it hardest.
Yeah, it's funny because I only really have like 3. Well, I shouldn't say that because I have a lot more I like and care about. But like local restaurants, we've got the Bar, the Oasis, which I haven't been to in a while. We really need to go back there because it looks like they're back to business. So we should have been supporting them more. And then the Ranch House Cafe and Lulu Bells is the 2 main eateries here in Ashford. And they slowed down, but the rural community here, really, I think kept them going. Although they were also able to, they weren't as sensitive to fluctuations in business. So the bigger question though is it over? Like, does it feel like it's over? How do people feel about my general analysis of like there is something that's over now? like this original fear mongering setting in of things getting worse phase. And things can get better and worse in different degrees and different ways. I'm not saying that, but there's sort of like COVID chapter 1 ends with Biden becoming president and $1,400 stimulus checks, and now we're in chapter
God, we're
2,
cheap.
where we're in this sort of, it's kind of leveled off. There is a sort of flat, like it's plateaued. Plateaued is a better way of describing it. Does that make sense? Or any thoughts from the audience on that? Your take?
I think everybody thinks they're gonna keep on, messing with us, stringing us on, bringing it on. A lot of people, they're calling for the end of the government and all that good stuff. It doesn't look like people think that it's going to let up. They think something's going to come with it, and they're going to just keep messing with us with it. At least from the perspective I'm getting from looking at the comments.
Well, like I said, is it that we're coming to a lessening, or is it just a plateau? And the plateauing means that there's a certain level of excuse me, of market intervention, of intervention in our lives, of the medical tyranny as a state, but without the increase of it, the general trend of it coming from nothing to this, at least nothing on COVID, to this level of control and ripoff and racket imposed around this, and conspiracies and sub-conspiracies and all sorts of price gouging and market manipulation. At least coming to a leveling off means that it's a huge reduction in the uncertainty, because when it's going up, it could keep going up. You got this momentum that's like, well, it could get a lot worse, could come back down, could level off. But if it's I feel like we're at a kind of leveling off, which is at least a good thing for quality of life. And I don't want to be too optimistic and say that things are coming down, but the managers, slapping new cuffs on us, Hertz getting slapped on, now they're on and we can get comfortable with them on, so to speak. And that's pretty dark, right? That's pretty pessimistic.
Let's hope their vaccine works and they let people continue living life without wearing a mask. And maybe if they do continue making people wear masks, maybe people should kind of wise up.
Well, getting comfortable in the cuffs means
kind of sucks.
A lot less suffering with stress for a lot of Americans and a lot of people all over the world, and that's a big deal. Is that the uncertainty is being taken away? I think the fear comes way down with that, and it also I think the plateau means we're gonna have, maybe I need to get this studio built. Because look, we have this awesome whiteboard here that's not in use because it's all mess around it. We don't have the background for it. Remember, we used to do the curve of tyranny. We have to flatten the curve of tyranny, and it's like I think we're coming to this point where there's a plateau, and it might be level for a while, might be up and down for a while.
It would be common sense with 3 supposed vaccines. You would think with 3 vaccines on the market, they might be able to beat it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not in order to try to analyze the momentum of this thing, as I'm trying to here with the bigger curve. That's not really relevant, because at any time they could say there's a new mutation and these vaccines aren't worth shit. They could say, well, these vaccines are bad, we have to give you better ones. Or like, well, now we need to give you an annual shot. And one of the things that I predicted is that this is going to roll into the flu as oh, well, it's going to become sort of like another strain of the flu, even though that's not literally what it is. But in terms of how it's handled, like how do we deal with the flu every year? Well, you get your shot. And it's bullshit. This is going to be like maybe the worst version.
And what it is when America, excuse me, stupid webcam. when we see America, especially us, we're at war with something. War on COVID, war on obesity, war on Iraq, war on terror. It's always a war, and with that mindset, they're always going to yank their chain and pull us this way and that way to get what they want out of us.
All right, so I'm gonna end this analysis on the optimistic note here, because that leveling off is the only way we can beat it. All right, well, we'll interrupt for super chat. Pasta Yogi, investigative reporter, taxation is theft, and the Fed, vote goal 2024. And so that's a great positive way to get to what I'm getting at here, with potential major electoral change even. But that's a symptom, or that's a manifestation of something much deeper. And so you say, well, their narrative, right, is that, well, we have vaccines, so now we can end this tyranny. Oh, but now if there's a variant, we can bring it back at any time. They need to keep that in people's minds. But there's a chance for people to, at least to a certain degree, wake up and get some awareness from this. And I think now that there's a plateauing, it means that we can start learning and applying the lessons, not just to bring this down, but to end it once and for all by adjusting our lifestyles, by going off grid, by working under the table, by being independent entrepreneurs, by living like government doesn't exist, and not being as affected by things like this, and also being ready to opt out and have live in civil disobedience. I was trying to make this point earlier with the businesses, like that if enough of them stood up together, the policies would be unenforceable. They don't have enough armored vehicles with police departments to raid every single bar and salon in Texas, as armed as your police are there. So I'm optimistic that, even though at best I can say this is kind of a plateauing or leveling off, it is a significant positive turning point coming into chapter 2 here, and the awareness, the lifestyle adjustments that people are going to make, the lessons learned are going to start to be applied. Oh wow, I haven't checked Telegram this entire time. Do we have? Okay, well, good. It's all the co-host crew going off, isn't it? You're getting coached and helped with comments here. All right, so you want to remind people what you want to see in the comments? We'll get back. We got a couple more important headline blocks to do.
Snarky,
we got some
relevant,
some gun stories. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Snarky, relevant, and trolly.
All right, Snarky, relevant, trolly wins you membership in the Producers Club today, and thank you for Pasta Yogi for your super chat. So now we have some guns. We have a block on guns. Guns, and it starts with a follow-up on the Arvada shooting. Daily Mail with this headline revealed Syrian-born gunman Ahmed Alissa, 21, was known to FBI and ranted about Islamophobes hacking his phone before killing 10 at Boulder grocery store with an assault rifle he bought 1 week ago. Now, right away you go, really, FBI? What's the FBI been doing since January 6th? Tracking down every last grandma who was at the false flag insurrection protest at the Capitol. The people we trust to keep us safe, with how many millions, hundreds of millions of dollars every year, the FBI knew about this guy while they were tracking down every last person who could have been charged at the January 6th rally. They were contacting our producer, CJ Abernathy, who was there with Cash Jackson to cover that event. They got a call from the FBI. This guy didn't. Yeah. Ahmad Alissa of Arvada, Colorado, opened fire at the King Soopers grocery store at 2:40 p.m. He killed 2 people in the parking lot before entering the store, where he killed another 8 people. His motive is still not known. When he surrendered to police, he asked to speak to his mother. In Facebook posts over the last 18 months, he complained that he didn't have a girlfriend and hated Trump. Alyssa's brother also told the Daily Beast he was very antisocial and has been paranoid since high school. He described him as mentally ill, said he'd been bullied in school, and that it was not politically motivated. His sister-in-law said she'd seen him playing with a gun recently, but not suspect him of violence. The victims range in age from 20 to 65. Among them was a cop, shoppers, and people who were getting their COVID-19 vaccine. The shooting is the 7th mass shooting in the U.S. in a week and comes 6 days after 8 died in Georgia. President Biden on Tuesday called for a nationwide ban on assault rifles and tighter laws on background checks. Can we not admit that government gun control is a failure? I'm not against gun control as a concept. Yeah, society has an interest in keeping guns away from crazy people, from tracking. We have an interest in tracking dangerous people, and government trying to do either of these things is a massive fucking failure. A voluntary system could only be better than what we have today, if only because it would allow peaceful people to be armed and defend themselves in an attack like this. MTETS weighs in with a super chat. How many people do you know that died from the flu alone, not pneumonia? I've been asking people for years, and no one has known one. Yeah, okay, so another COVID popping the bubble of bullshit. Back to the gun stories. This shooting here, Ahmad Alissa, known to the FBI while the FBI was tracking people from the January 6th false flag insurrection at the Capitol. And if you want to look at this objectively, you know that it's the government failure in gun control as a matter of policy. It's a government failure in taking such a large role in healthcare, in mental health. It's not like mass killings of rational people having a bad day or, shooting up a bank because they thought they'd get rich and oh no, whoops, we caught them. No, these are fucking lunatics committing these shootings. To not talk about mental health with this is just missing the point to such a degree that it's misleading bullshit. And speaking of misleading bullshit about guns, our next headline, New York Post, nypost.com, Obama on Boulder shooting, disaffection, racism, and misogyny drive killing. Really? Couldn't have anything to do with mental health or gun control or anything the government does. No, it's government not doing enough, according to Barack Obama, who's back now as the power behind the scenes, with the Biden administration. Mike Freeman, also with a super chat, is snarky a racist, so we should take their guns. Right. Take this down with the snarkies. Former President Barack Obama on Tuesday released a statement on the Boulder shooting saying recent killings are being driven by disaffection, racism, and misogyny, despite Colorado officials identifying the gunman who slaughtered 10 inside a grocery store as a Syrian-born immigrant. Right. But don't pay attention to facts. Facts don't care about your feelings, and feelings are more important for allowing you to be manipulated by government. And what does that do? It drives fear, right? Let's not understand this and come up with a rational response, because that's not profitable for us in government. You think, oh, Adam, Biden administration, they're all well-intentioned government servants trying to do the right thing. No. We popped that bubble of delusion yesterday with the story about all the Biden officials in the White House coming back super rich compared to how they were during the Obama administration as White House officials then. So disaffection, racism, and misogyny, well, we can have government programs that go on forever to take care of that. More control. It's sort of like the global, we can't have a global war on terror, but we can scare you into helping us fight disaffection, racism, and misogyny. How are we going to do that? Well, it's not just all the ways that we have to do that directly. No, because we have to also, by the way, just take your guns away. No, not take guns away, because we want to make sure that the cops have plenty of guns, plenty of armored vehicles, that they're over-militarized. They have every weapon they could possibly want to suppress the population. And with you disarmed, well, criminals in uniform and out will know that you are disarmed and not able to defend yourself. There is a motive here behind government, if only existential, but in some ways very conscious and deliberate, to maintain the government monopoly on force, to make it more of an exclusive right that you cannot resist. Social isolation. The government employs crazy people and gives them guns. Yeah, there's that too. Hey, you got PTSD from Iraq or Afghanistan? Don't worry, we'll give you another uniform and a gun, this time with a badge and legal impunity. All right, Spoda B69 will only need one gun law, and that's the Second Amendment. Well, no, we don't need any gun laws. That would be fine if you just said none. But do you have a right to own a gun? Do you need an enumerated right to own a gun? No, not in a free society, because in a free society, your right to own property is respected, and nobody can come into your home or into your vehicle or on your person and say, you cannot own that piece of metal because it's in a shape I don't like, unless you're the Biden administration. Forbes.com with our next headline, how they're actually doing this. Biden administration urges Supreme Court to let cops enter homes and seize guns without a warrant. The U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday will hear oral argument in Caniglia versus Strom, a case that could have sweeping consequences for policing, due process, and mental health, with the Biden administration attorneys general from 9 states urging the high court to uphold warrantless gun confiscation. Yep. Oh, you have a right to a gun? No. You have a privilege that they can take away at any time. But what would ultimately become a major Fourth Amendment case began with an elderly couple spat over a coffee mug. Shall we get the backstory? In August 2015, 68-year-old Edward Caniglia joked to Kim, his wife of 22 years, that he didn't use a certain coffee mug after his brother-in-law used it because he might catch a case of dishonesty. That quickly spiraled into an hour-long argument. Growing exhausted from the bickering, Edward stormed into his bedroom, grabbed an unloaded handgun, and put it on the kitchen table in front of his wife. With a flair for the dramatic, he then asked, "Why don't you just shoot me and get me out of my misery?" Perhaps unsurprisingly, the tactic backfired and the two continued to argue. Eventually, Edward took a drive to cool off, but when he returned, their argument flared up once again. This time, Kim decided to leave the house and spend the night at a motel. The next day, Kim phoned home, no answer. Worried, she called police in Cranston, Rhode Island, asked them to perform a well check on her husband and to escort her home. When they arrived, officers spoke with Edward on the back deck. According to an incident report, he seemed normal and was calm for the most part. He even said he would never commit suicide. However, none of the officers had asked Edward any questions about the factors relating to his risk of suicide, risk of violence, or misuse of firearms. Yeah, heaven forbid. By the way, sidebar here. Yeah, let's have police making mental health calls. That's really good for public safety. No criminal record, no history of violence or self-harm. In fact, one of the officers later admitted he did not consult any specific psychological or psychiatric criteria or medical professionals for his decision that day. Still, police were convinced, based on what his wife said, that Edward could hurt himself and insisted he head to a local hospital for a psych eval. After refusing, insisting his mental health wasn't their business, he agreed only after police falsely promised they wouldn't seize his guns while he was gone. Compounding the dishonesty, police then told Kim that Edward had consented to the confiscation. Believing the seizures were approved by her husband, Kim led the officers to the 2 handguns the couple owned, which were promptly seized. Even though Edward was immediately discharged from the hospital, police only returned the firearms after he filed a civil rights lawsuit against them. Critically, when police seized the guns, they didn't claim it was an emergency or to prevent imminent danger. Instead, the officers argued their actions were a form of community caretaking, a narrow exception to the Fourth Amendment's warrant requirement. Yeah. And what is it? The Biden administration wants them to be able to do this. So here it is. In its first amicus brief before the High Court, the Biden administration glossed over these concerns and called on the justices to uphold the First Circuit's ruling, noting that the ultimate touchstone of the Fourth Amendment is reasonableness. Basically, we can do whatever the fuck we want if we think it's reasonable. The Justice Department argued that warrants should not be presumptively required when a government official's action is objectively grounded in a non-investigatory public interest, such as health or safety. Yeah, no. Crazy. So this is not the end of the surge in statism around gun policy. NBC News. In wake of shootings, Senate renews efforts to overhaul U.S. gun laws. House passed legislation to establish universal background checks. Doesn't appear to have the votes in the Senate. It's not clear what, if anything, can pass. On the heels of 2 mass shootings that have shocked the country, the Senate is once again weighing an overhaul of the nation's gun laws with a murky path ahead. And sometimes I wonder all of this is just to increase gun sales by making people paranoid that they're about to make it impossible to buy guns. But you never know what's going to come out of this. Asked about gun legislation Tuesday, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he's open to the discussion. Oh, our great Republican defender of freedom. But didn't say what ideas he might support. The Kentucky Republican said he opposes the House-approved policies, adding, "What I'm not attracted to is something that doesn't work. Without 60 votes in the Senate, gun control measures are likely to fuel calls by some in the Democratic Party to nix the filibuster and allow measures to be passed with just 50 votes." So this is one of those things. Back to one of my bigger questions: how does the last licks theory hold up in light of this? They abolished the filibuster. Could it mean that a much more aggressive Senate would be the result? That an acceleration of statism could be significant? Empty comments. Just hide them in the super soaker like that other dude. That's right. We showed you the story. It was a Nerf gun. Nerf gun, I believe, on Monday, where a first-time cops had seized apparently a gun designed to be disguised as a toy gun. All right, now to our econ block before we check back in with John and get to our grab bag. From DNYUZ, stock rally poses question, when does a bull become a bubble? The bull market turned a year old on Tuesday, a testament to the unbridled enthusiasm that let investors shrug off the economic carnage of the pandemic and buy stocks and pretty much anything else. Oh, geez. This is one of those stories I want to just like translate everything from, politicized bullshit into reality. But one of the things is just, you don't even need to translate. The bull market turned a year old on Tuesday. A year, a whole freaking year. Remember, they crashed the market very deliberately so they could buy it back for pennies on the dollar. And it's not just buying it back for pennies on the dollar, but a consolidation of economic power in the hands of the few. As I pointed out yesterday in our econ block, there were a lot of people who, when they lost their jobs or their businesses were suffering, a lot of small business owners cashed out portfolios in order to keep businesses alive that later, well, they kept the lockdowns going just long enough for enough of them to die to be happy repurchasing them. Like, again, the Trump quote, don't worry, the restaurants will come back just under new ownership. So pretty much anything else. Since the S&P 500 scraped bottom on March 23 last year, the blue chip index has posted a rally of nearly 75%, even with a 0.8% fall on Tuesday. Tesla's stock is up more than 650%, while true believers have pushed up shares of GameStop by over 4,500%. That's definitely a bubble. Bitcoin is booming, and so are even more esoteric assets like NFTs, which we'll get to in a minute. It's enough to pose a question that would have seemed unfathomable a year ago. Is this a bubble? Said Gary Evans, chief strategist for global asset allocation at BCA Research. I would say there's certainly pockets of the market that look bubbly. Mr. Evans said he didn't see a generalized bubble, but believed that individual stocks like GameStop, which was driven up in January by retail traders gathering on sites like Reddit, and cryptocurrencies were overvalued. Those are definitely individual bubbles. Few on Wall Street will ever predict a broad-based bubble, the overenthusiastic rise of prices that can be ruinous to investors when they burst. So it's remarkable that the B word is on anyone's lips when you consider the outlook a year ago. The stock market had plunged nearly 34%, finally bottomed out March 23, 2020. Now, the thing about this, there's one more thing I got to read here, because there's the Fed. The sell-off only stopped only after the Federal Reserve took steps to cut interest rates almost to zero and restarted bond buying programs that bought trillions of dollars in government-backed debt to get money flowing through financial markets. As in, they gave money to their super rich friends so they could buy stocks. Stocks began climbing again and accelerated as the government provided aid, including expanded unemployment benefits and 3 rounds of direct stimulus payments worth as much as $3,200 a person. Translation: we distracted you by giving you a tiny piece of the pie that we were ripping off from the entire economy. That spending gave investors a psychological lift while the economy still looks weak. The flood of money, along with the rising number of vaccinations, has raised expectations for 2021 economic growth from 2% a year ago to 5.7% on Tuesday, according to Bloomberg data. That suggests a rush of corporate profits. Key drivers for stock prices will follow. Now, this is just economic growth, 2% to 5%. They say it right here. That suggests a rush of corporate profits, not a rise in average income, not a rise in standard of living, not an increase in anything that matters to the average American consumer. You'll get more stimulus, right? You'll get more little pieces of breadcrumbs that you can give back to corporate America and the banking class for some gas for your car, because gas prices are going up. to buy cheap plastic shit from China and pay for your overdue bills to Verizon for all of the reasons that you were behind on bills in the first place. Just forget about that. Be distracted with $1,400. Oh, and never mind. Oh, we go on that note to our next headline, Yahoo Finance. A fourth stimulus check might be on the way. And yeah, starting to feel like UBI, isn't it? With a third round of stimulus checks beginning to hit taxpayers' bank accounts this week, many are wondering if there will be a fourth round. The American Rescue Plan, signed by Biden March 11, in an effort to provide financial relief to individuals, business, and communities hit hardest by the coronavirus. This marked another round of stimulus checks, the third since the pandemic first hit last year. And I'll bet Biden's rubbing it in on old moneybags Donald Trump. Oh, well, he did 600 stimulus payments. Out the gate with $1,400. How do you like that? According to Politico, some Democratic members of Congress do not feel a third is enough. 2 months before the new package was signed, 50 Democratic members of the House signed a letter asking Biden to prioritize recurring direct checks instead of one-time stimulus payments. The letter published by Politico states another one-time round of checks would provide a temporary lifeline, but when that money runs out, families will once again struggle to pay for basic necessities. One more check is not enough during this public health and economic crisis. And this is, you go, well, Adam, you're being paranoid. This is not a backdoor to UBI. And by the way, I'm not against universal basic income as a goal of a voluntary society, which we could have if we respected the value of every human being inherently and say, no, we don't have to give government custody of your rights and your assets so they can manage it for you and give you an allowance. But that's kind of what we've come to at this point with the gross unnatural concentrations of wealth that exists in the world. Captain Case, the rich get richer, the poor get leftovers to seem like the rich actually care. Well said. Great summary. Associated Press, Oakland launches guaranteed pay plan for low-income people. Yep. The latest in herd management in the high-tech era. Sacramento, California, the mayor of Oakland, California, on Tuesday announced a privately funded program that will give low-income families of color $500 per month with no rules on how they can spend it. The program is the latest experiment with a guaranteed income, an idea that giving poor people a set amount of money each month helps ease the stresses of poverty that often lead to poor health while hindering their ability to find full-time work. The idea isn't new, but it's having a revival across the U.S. after some mayors launched small temporary programs across the country in a coordinated campaign to convince Congress to adopt a national guaranteed income program. The first program launched in 2019 in Stockton, California, led by former Mayor Michael Tubbs. Tubbs, who founded the group Mayors for Guaranteed Income, has said about 6 similar programs in other cities should be up and running by the summer. And it's interesting to say that this is a private program as a backdoor to a public program, right? The Oakland Resilient Families Program has so far raised $6.75 million from private donors, including Blue Meridian Partners, a national philanthropy group. To be eligible, people must have at least one child under 18 and income at or below 50% of the area median income, about $59,000 per year for a family of 3. Now, part of the problem with this, as opposed to universal basic income, is that it creates this criteria that creates a bureaucracy that creates an incentive for people to act differently and fill out paperwork differently. And there are limitations to this. So is this really UBI? No, but they're trying to sell it as that and say, look, it's going to have these positive effects. And I bet it will. The thing is, if it stayed private, I'd be 100% for it. And this does reveal the great hypocrisy of the super rich. You don't hear a lot of libertarians say this because Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, allegedly gained their wealth by superior products and business tactics and winning in the market and giving people goods and services that they wanted to consume. But that's really only partially true. And the reason their wealth is so outsized is that corporatism protected them from competition. Intellectual property gave them an unfair advantage. And intellectual property is a racket. I'm not going to go into that now. It's a long, you cannot ethically use force to prevent the free flow of information. You cannot own an idea. It's as simple as that. So those people who own, hundreds of billions of dollars they know that they would not be that rich without those government benefits. I mean, look at all the grants and government money that even Elon Musk has gotten directly. So they know that they have benefited from money that has been taken from the people, and they could, for fractions of their wealth, create universal basic income programs for their communities. And I'm afraid we're going to come to a new, period of economic tyranny, of maybe billionaire-led communities where they guarantee UBI to people who kiss their ring. But that's still better than government, and that would be a general correction of the concentration of wealth, and it would be progress. I don't know if I can make that prediction to say that it's going to go that way, but it's certainly a possibility. Because I mean, if I had $1 billion, everybody in America would have a copy of Freedom first, and then the rest of it. I can't imagine keeping more than I would want for myself. I don't want to judge. Everybody has different standards and perspectives on wealth, and Elon Musk's excuse is that he's preparing for interplanetary future for our species. Okay, but and it's different if you have it as a company or as an asset as opposed to like if you're sitting on cash. But there are people sitting on that kind of cash, and you go like, well, how much can you really enjoy for yourself? And I've thought about this as a matter of smarter greed, right? Like, if I had $10 million even, could I spend more than $1 million designing like my dream homestead on this 10 acres, buy 160 acres around me, and have all the buildings I could possibly want for me and my family and guests and events here, and at that point, like maybe another $10 million, I could have, or another $1 million I could have in savings and rainy day funds. But beyond that, if I'm sitting on it, I want to invest it, and I want to invest it not just in making me richer, but in giving me things that then money can't buy. If you have what you need for yourself and your family to be happy and whole and healthy and to take care of people you care about, and a rainy day fund and security and all of that, any money that you pile on more than that into your own pockets is a malinvestment, as opposed to putting it back into the world in charity or in investment in businesses that are going to create more things, that create more value. But even if you just want to guarantee that you always have this, and you pile up more money, get some goodwill, get some appreciation out there. If the world knows, if the universe, that when you get money, you use it to help people, that you don't take more than you need, and even in an outsized measure, like for me, I can save millions of dollars, but at a certain point, there's a huge diminishing returns where it really is an unhealthy greed. And I think that is something that we're evolving out of, and maybe this private UBI is one of the ways we transition away. Kevin Lewis, this free money is going to end with a bang. All money is going to have some type of backing, has to have some such as gold. America has no gold anymore. Okay, so Elon Musk, speaking of money, announces Teslas can now be bought with Bitcoin. We covered pretty extensively his big purchase of $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin about a month ago, and now you can actually buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. So very cool. And Yahoo Finance, the world is facing a coffee deficit in supply chain nightmare. Interesting side effect of COVID. We can't get drugs. Our stimulus is supplies in the U.S. are shrinking, and wholesale prices are surging, with the hard-hit market bracing for further fallout from a global shortage of shipping containers that's upended the food trade. Coffee stockpiles have sunk to a 6-year low in the U.S., even with Brazil's record crop, and a large drop in output after a drought in the South American country is expected to shift the world balance to a deficit in coming months, just as demand rebounds. Everyone is feeling the pinch, said Christian Walters, the president of Walters Duque, an importer in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, who estimates that shipping costs have more than doubled from Latin America. These bottlenecks are turning into a container nightmare. So again, part of this sort of chapter 2 of COVID, coming into this phase now, we're seeing some of the economic effects now longer term. And I hope people are going to realize how all these things are, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Speaking of which, Observer.com, the tech moguls and celebrities riding the NFT hype and cashing in. I said we get back to this. Non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, have soared in popularity in recent weeks and have already become a game of numbers among newly minted crypto millionaires and tech moguls. On Monday, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey sold his first ever tweet. How do you do that? You sell the tweet for $1,630.58 Ether, worth $2.9 million at the time of the sale as an NFT to Sina Estavi, CEO of the blockchain company Bridge Oracle. The tweet, which said, "Just setting up my Twitter," was published on March 21st, 2006. Dorsey put it up for sale on a platform called Valuables on March 6th. By March 9, bids had reached $2.4 million in Ether, $1,630.8. Dorsey is the latest celebrity billionaire to get in on the NFT gold rush. Last week, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk posted a short techno music track on Twitter, announced that he's selling the tweet with the embedded song as an NFT on Valuables, despite receiving an offer worth $1.12 million, also from Estavi. Musk eventually decided not to sell the tweet, saying, "It doesn't feel quite right selling this." I think this is all a game. This is all like, no, they're just it's like the way that the art world, if you really look into how the art world is full of manipulation at the highest levels, you're like, yeah, that I don't know, seems like kind of a shady sentimentalist way to get attention for Bitcoin. I won't have anything to do with it unless, of course, someone offers me millions of crypto in order to create NFTs. Then I'd be happy to get in on this. The Wall Street Journal: unusual leap in gas prices puts $3 a gallon in sight. Yeah, your stimulus check. Yeah, well, you're going to have to give a big chunk of that back to the bankers through the gas companies, one way or another. Back to the super class in order to go spend it. Unusual leap in gas prices puts $3 a gallon in sight. Analysts expect crowded highways and diminished stockpiles to lift gas prices into the summer driving season. The prospect of summer drivers crowding U.S. highways is powering steep gains in the price of gasoline, a sign of economic recovery and a boon for the pandemic-ravaged energy industry. Oh, the poor energy industry. All right, we're just going to skim these last headlines real quick so we have a few minutes to check back in with John before we do our good news and sign off. USA Today: Suez Canal blocked by massive cargo container ship. And I definitely wanted to cover this because I think John had something to say about it. But apparently there are a lot of conspiracy theories about this cargo ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal near Suez, Egypt yesterday. Cargo container ship that's among the largest in the world has turned sideways and blocked all traffic in Egypt Suez Canal, threatening to disrupt a global shipping system already strained by the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of interesting theories around this. Also, from thedrive.com, the war zone: multiple destroyers were swarmed by mysterious drones off California over numerous nights. The disturbing series of events during the summer of 2019 resulted in an investigation that made its way to the highest echelons of the Navy. And if you think I'm skimming some of these headlines too fast, you can find all of the links that we cover on this show exclusively at t.me/Adam versus the Man, our Telegram channel. The Jerusalem Post: IDF accidentally reveals location of secret bases online. The map was detailed enough to include boundaries and names of the bases. Whoops. IDF officers examine a map of the Middle East. An apparent blunder of operational security. The IDF Homefront Command published the location of secret IDF bases. Haaretz reported Tuesday. Trouble with Ghislaine Maxwell case. New filing shows potential issues with the government's case against Maxwell, from technofog.substack.com. Just including this because someone put it in the Producers Club chat, and I know CJ is keen on covering the story. Today, a motion was unsealed in the Ghislaine Maxwell case that gives us serious concerns about the government's case against Maxwell. I'll make this brief. The unsealed motion had to do with Maxwell's recent rejected motion for release on bail. It had been sealed because it references documents that are still under seal. You read the full motion for release here. I won't go through the motion, only parts that stand out. Hold on, I want to get to this. But anyway, they're saying that they might not have the case they thought on Miss Maxwell, and we are very much looking forward to these documents being revealed publicly eventually. Follow up on Vice, from Vice, on Amazon delivery drivers. Amazon delivery drivers forced to sign biometric consent form or lose job. The new cameras, which are being implemented nationwide, use artificial intelligence to access drivers' location, movement, and biometric data. And it's kind of weird to see Amazon super high tech in so many ways with this story, but delivery drivers and like we've covered in the past, that a lot of Amazon employees end up in really shitty positions. This is a shitty job. You get pushed, and people end up using pee bottles to maintain their schedules and things like that. But this is all about to be accomplished by drone, isn't it? Why be dicks to these drivers when you're about to fire them all anyway? Crypto learner, those fungible pizzas are tasty. Good NFT reference. Tight Israeli. Okay, so I told you also about Bibi from AP News. Tight Israeli vote means Arab Islamists could choose next PM. After a hard-fought election, an Arab Islamist could choose Israel's next prime minister. You read that correctly. Tuesday's elections have left a razor-thin margin between a right-wing coalition led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a diverse array of parties bent on ousting him. To prevail, each side may need the support of an Arab Islamist party that appears to have clinched just 5 seats in the 120-member Knesset, but is not committed to either, according to near final results. That means the United Arab List, known by the Hebrew name Ram, could decide whether Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister, remains in office. Wow. So now we'll be coming back to that story as well. And that's all of our critical headlines for today. John, let's get John back up on stage. Do we have a winner for our comment contest, Mr. Evans?
You know what? I'm going to say Nocturnal's going to be the winner for the comment contest. He stuck through. He's been consistent, added a lot of good contributions to the show.
All right. You got any recent ones to put on screen there? Oh, the ship that was supposed to be bringing the Colombian coffee was full of cocaine.
I'm assuming that's in reference to the ship stuck in the canal.
Yeah. Well, what was your weren't you the one who shared that in the producers club?
I shared the article, and then and another of our producers, Mr. Liberty, said the Q people are going nuts on this ship. Evergreen was a code word. Examples below. That number's a Clinton Foundation. How do you take down child trafficking operations run by Epstein, Mossad, CIA, Clinton Foundation, Obama admin? You stop a big fucking evergreen ship full of children in the Suez Canal. That's, I guess, what people in that community are saying, is that they ran the ship aground and it's full of kids. Only time will tell if that's the truth. I was under the impression that it was a ship that went sideways in the canal, but maybe things have run a little aground.
Yeah, I definitely want to come back to this story. I think there's going to be a more decisive answer, because the idea of a ship just turning sideways, like, there's so much money in the canal system and the shipping system. This doesn't happen by accident. I love this. Don't forget, the most radical thing we can do is grow our own food. Absolutely. Be self-reliant. Be conscientious. We're working on that. We'll get to the food growing part soon here in Gardenia. I'm actually really looking forward to that, because it's all about construction now. But soon it's going to be about growing food and producing wonderful meals here right on the property. John, great job today. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations to our Producer Club member winner.
It's been my pleasure as well, being here. I look forward to working with you, Adam. It's been kind of just, trying to keep my head while I'm paying attention to all this and getting to know of it. I don't know about the canal. I mean, it could be intentionally running aground, could be mechanical failure. It is one of the world's, it's the biggest canal over there, so it's of strategic importance. So a ship running aground in it and stopping cargo for 3 days is a pretty big deal, but I try to look at the simplest answer first. Who knows? I guess we'll find out more as we come back to it.
Well, see, that's where, like I said, I think in this case, it was a mistake is not a simple answer, because in order for it to have been a mistake, how many systems had to fail? How many backups? How many people actually had to make a mistake? I mean, there's got to be, it's not like one guy fell asleep at the wheel and was like, oh, whoops, now the ship's sideways in the canal. Like, that would be a simple answer, but that's not how it happened. For it to be a mistake, that becomes really complicated, as opposed to like somebody had this thing behind the scenes, like somebody threatened somebody behind the scenes and said, look, I can make this happen, and shut down the canal. Anyway, we're going to come back to this hopefully before we see you again next Wednesday. Thanks again for co-hosting today, John. Great job on your
Thanks for having me, Adam.
All right. Producer Jim Freedom, take us on with our last set of promos here. Don't forget crypto6.com, of course, and be in Kentucky April 5th if you can. We'll get the link tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get the link for that tomorrow. And we'll add that into tomorrow's promos. But you can visit, what is it? Thecrypto6.com. The crypto, and then the number 6.com, right?
Yeah.
I can go ahead and pull it up right now. Why not? That important. The crypto 6. And it's showing everybody live how easy it is. Even though I'm typing slow because I got my hands over a bunch of shit. Okay. So adding this to the promos as of this moment. Thecrypto6.com. Please visit that. If you scroll down, it has all these QR codes that you can scan with your phone. Just most people can pull your camera up. You don't even have to have a special QR reader. You just pull up your regular camera, point at it, and a little icon comes up, and you tap on that. Brings you to where you need to be to donate to help those guys out. So definitely make that happen. Adam told you about how to find the links. If you think he went through the links too fast towards the end there because we were running out of time, you can find every one of those links individualized and categorized in the public Telegram channel. You can also be even cooler than the people in the public Telegram channel by being in the private Telegram channel. And the way you do that is by visiting the website that you see on the bottom of the page, adamversustheman.com. Page looks like this when you get to it. Right here, as you scroll down, there's a button that says Patreon. You click there. It shows you $1, $5, or $10 a month. You click on this join button for $10 a month. That's going to get you access to the Producers Club, the private Producers Club that our friend won access to today. I forgot to also mention, or the co-host, our friend Jonathan, didn't know to tell them when they win, to tell the winner to email me, Jim@thefreedomline.com, and I'll get you taken care of, get you into the Producers Club. You'll be there today by the end of the day, so that'll be a good time. After that, you can go back to the website and check out the shop CJ's put together. And sorry, one more thing, Cigar Federation, check them out. They got all kinds of cigars to check out. You can use promo code Adam10 to get anything you want there at 10% off of your entire order. And go to Instagram, visit at the Garden of Freedom, and check out all the snow pictures that Adam's going to be putting up very, very soon.
My allergies woke me up in the middle of the night last night, and I think it was the fiberglass still bugging me, and I feel like my timing has been off all morning. So with that said, we got one worthwhile note in our Good News on This Day in History from goodnewsnetwork.org. It was on this day in 1837 that Canada extended to black citizens the right to vote 128 years before 1965 when the United States did. And with that, peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.